small update on the 18th of February, my way to the gym. On Ukraine, the last few days, there have been hundreds of these FAB guided bombs being dropped on Avdiivka area, and general reports are about 1,500 killed or wounded from these bombs. It's just continuous dropping of bombs day and night. And about 500 surrendered. So it's just falling apart extremely rapidly. And when they do get everybody either dead or surrendered, I guess they've got the prisons were emptied at Bakhmut about a year or so ago, and probably to be able to house them in there, the guys in there. The other thing, and so they'll be able to reroute about 40 to 50,000 Russian troops at that point down to Robotyne, the very south. Finally get rid of the guys down there. And I can't figure out why there's still a battle going on there, because the Ukrainians that are holding Robotyne, it was just a village, not a big town, and every building has been flattened there. So how do they find any protection at all? It's a mystery to me. The other thing that I heard today was the Su-57 is Russia's latest and greatest fighter. It's an amazing jet. If you haven't seen it, just type it into Google, Su-57, and have a look. There's a lot of videos on it. And the Russians have, because it's hard to train a fighter pilot to the levels that needed to fly a jet like that, so the Russians have developed this. It's a stealth drone that goes out in tandem with the Su-57, and you'll see lots of videos of that on YouTube as well. And those are going to be in production and deployed before the end of 2024. So it's a wingman, in other words, and one protects the other. So what I've noticed was, just on my own, looking at American technology and versus Russian and Chinese, is these other countries are so far ahead of the US, it's not even funny. And even if you look at that tank, the American tank, it's 20 tons heavier than the Russian ones. So it can't operate in, in the mud in these countries. And it'll get bogged down and then destroyed. So as you saw when the Tigers went in, they were as well 20 tons heavier. And they were all getting destroyed down in Robotyne. And when the British sent their Challengers in, they told the Ukrainians, don't use these on the front lines. Have them back, about 5 or 10, whatever the range of their guns is. Use them back there, because they didn't want them showing up on social media. And I noticed that the American tanks haven't been appearing on social media either, and I think it's for the same reason. They don't want anybody to know that they built these expensive things that don't work. And I think with the US technology, the more expensive they can build it, the better, because the more profit is made by the tank building companies or missile building companies. It doesn't matter if they work, it's just the profit that gets spread around by everybody over there in Washington. So anyway, it's unfortunate for the West, but fortunate for Russia. And so yeah, I'm off to the gym, and so we'll talk to you later. Hey, just got out of the gym, and I usually listen to podcasts when I'm in there working out. And there's a couple of things I wanted to mention from they were on these podcasts that I was listening to. One of the guys I listened to is Alexander Mercouris from the Duran. So three things were there was a tank, the American tanks, and then I wanted to mention Navalny in reference to Assange and Gonzalo Lira, and then these security security meetings in Security Conference, I guess you call it, in Zurich, or was it not Zurich, Munich. And if you look online on Google Images, you'll see the pictures from the meeting there in Zurich, or in Munich. And really, you'd think it was a crowning of a king in some European country. It's so lavish, and the people will be there. They all seem to bring their wives with them. And it's something that Putin never does. He doesn't, you never see a picture of his wife or girlfriend or daughters or anything like that. But the Western, especially U.S. presidents, all seem to do that. Obama is always seen with his family, despite all the bombs he's dropped on the little brown people. Bill Clinton, when he was with the Monica Lewinsky, there's Hillary standing by right behind him to give him the image of a nice family man. And George Bush, always with his wife. And, and even Donald Trump. You look online, you can see his pictures of his wife naked on his plane, in the bed when she was a model. And, for everybody to see there, posing on this plane. So, but these people all show up, in Munich in their best attire, and spending a huge amount of money on this. It's like a vacation for them. And they seem to forget all the people that this vacation they're having is causing them to die in the muddy trenches and fields of Avdiivka. There's probably been about 500,000, 450,000 to 500,000 Ukrainians dead from this skirmish over there, and it's all they're doing. But as long as it makes them more money, it doesn't matter. So that was the thing about that. And then Alexander was saying that there was a video had surfaced of one of these American Abrams tanks, and it was a Ukrainian person that had taken because it's behind their lines, and it was scurrying away from the front lines at a high rate of speed, not going towards the lines, but scurrying away, because I guess it reinforces what I said. They don't want any videos of these things appearing in flames, so they don't want it used on the front lines. They'll give them to them, but they don't want it used in the front lines. And then lastly, the Navalny thing, there's been, I think, 28 articles in the New York Times have appeared so far about Navalny's death. And they just can't stop writing about him. And he was to them, he was the great white hope for Russia, but he wasn't really any hope at all, because he only had about 1% of the vote. But they need something like that, and they're, the West is furious. All the leaders and which transcends down to all Western media is furious, because they can't. There's nothing they can do to Russia anymore. They've sanctioned them to the hilt, and they just can't hurt them anymore. And of course, there's not one of them has produced any sort of truth about Navalny. And the other thing is you get Gonzalo Lira, who died. I think he died from it was medical neglect from a severe cold like pneumonia. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I seem to think that's what it was. But you know, when he was first arrested, Blinken was asked in one news conference, what about this guy releasing him? All you got to do is one phone call to Kiev, and we're going to hold back the money unless you release this U.S. citizen. And Blinken pretended he'd never heard of him, and he'd look into it, but of course he didn't, because they wanted him in prison, they wanted him dead, and that's what happened to him. And the other one's Julian Assange. You know, he's been in Balmore or Balmouth prison in isolation for 2 or 3 years, and he was in the embassy Ecuador for 7 years before that. And nobody says a word about him, or they're talking all the time about him, but when it comes to 500,000 people, they don't care. 500,000 Ukrainians, they don't care about them. So it just exposes, you know, these people that both the Western leaders, all the people that appear at this Munich Security Conference, and the Western media. But everybody seems to think the Western media is on its last legs. The Tucker Carlson interview with Putin has now the number is over 1 billion views. Nobody even in their wildest dreams thought it could have been that high, but that's what the number is now, over 1 billion views. So it really appears as mainstream media is on its last legs, and this is the beginning of it. It's going to fall apart. So that's the video for today, and wish you all a happy weekend.